And son, you can sit back there on the back, you okay? Sometimes you have to confront your friends. Sometimes you're railing against churches and you're railing against the community because the perception of Black contractors and workers have been demonized. The old saying that the bankers used to call the chambers and get their friends over and do the jobs and exclude African Americans. But today what we want to do is deal with this new Jim Crow policy. When you talk about Jim Crow, most people equate it to the end of the Civil War, which was setting up a policy and a law that says people are going to be excluded on the basis of their race, their gender, and their ethnicity. And when you look up the definition of Jim Crow, it is segregation and it is marginalization of African Americans, women, and people of color. And it is also discrimination on the basis of class, association, and affiliation. So I asked the question, what's the difference between union segregation and discrimination and exclusion for 100% set aside for a minority group, allegedly, that represents 12 to 20% of the construction industry, who have used their resources to back political PACs, to buy politicians with the caveat that when you get in office, we want all for us and none for them. I think that the public needs to be made aware of this morally repugnant policy. It's evil and it's unfair. How can an organization like the National Black Contractors Association be a legally state and federal legal approved apprenticeship program that provides training and hiring of African American and BIPOC community? How can you say you're going to outlaw us with a local state, with a local city or county law and policy? That's an oxymoron. How can you say you're legal per the state and for the federal government? So I say this in my opening remarks, and the public has been duped because the propaganda is that we're going to train better workers and we're going to pay them union scale or higher wages. There's a thing called prevailing wages in the state of California that says every man and every woman that works on any publicly funded project is going to be paid the prevailing wage scale. That prevailing wage scale is set at somewhere of $27 to start upwards towards $65 an hour. And so the public is being duped that we're going to create opportunities through unionization, which is a forced policy. If you want to work on tax-paid property, land that's owned by the taxpayers, you're going to have to first cough up $500 in order to work or don't work. And then you're going to have to spit up $20 an hour or $20 a month or more for your union dues. Now, this is not a fight against the unions, more power to them. This is a damnation on the politicians and the policymakers who are setting laws to exclude a Jim Crow policy law to impose forced exclusion on a majority population. 80% of the construction industry is free enterprise. They have the right to elect to be or not be unionize. So the question is asked, I think that as a builder, I would find it befitting for me to be able to go into an organization and find a stable of skilled workers. That should be an attractive place for me to find workers and rent them out and then send them back when I don't need them. So why the shotgun marriage? Why are we being forced to sign a PLA and then there's a marginalization that we're going to give 10% to the BIPOC community to fight over, to divvy up? So I asked the question, is that fair? Is this right? Is this moral? Is America asleep? We talk about the end of slavery. We talk about Juneteenth, but yet and still the same folks, party that created slavery and Jim Crow policies are in power today, and they are bringing back their trickery. And so while many sleep, this is taking place. So in commemoration of my 76th, or pardon me, let me not get there yet, flip the script, my 67th birthday, I want to have some of my national affiliate chapter presidents chime in to this very important topic. Do we have Donald McCutcheon out of Carolinas on the line?
Yes, we do. It's Donald McCutcheon.
Brother McCutcheon. Yes, sir. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here from the great state of the Carolinas to chime in on this subject. We had some 20 years ago or 15 plus years ago when we formed the National Black Contractors Association, and we're having this same discussion today. What is your perspective on how we can educate folks in the state of Carolinas, or are you faced with these PLAs issues in the Carolinas?
Brother Hamid, first let me acknowledge you with the great work you're doing, and also to send you some shout outs for your new birthday year. Yes, every year is a new birthday year, so this is a new birthday year for you. So we want to shout you out for that, but also for all your panels and everybody that are there, in reference to your quest for trying to make headway with all the policies and laws that we are faced. Yes, we are faced with some of the similar areas of policies that you guys are faced with there in the San Diego area. We are fighting a battle that certainly has to be changed through policies, and obviously with getting the lawmakers to adhere to our concerns and our approach of how we are to not just be given an opportunity, but be given some real responsive construction programs, so to speak, so we could kind of leverage our own table, so to speak, because when we're dealing with these particular policies, we don't really have the say-so that would leverage our own table for us to create the laws and policies that affects us more so than just on a immediate basis. We have to set policies and law that's going to affect us in the long term, whereas the next generation will have to jump through these same hoops that we're trying to develop and create reference to policies that is affecting us in reference to, again, they put us on the team, but it sit us on the bench. That doesn't work. So we got to figure out how we are going to create opportunities for our own communities and get lawmakers in Congress that will feel the pain that we're having to deal with, and for them to be sincere with how we're trying to create these opportunities and laws. So that's just somewhat of a nut bolt of what we're talking about, but we'll chime in and give response where we're needed.
Well, I want to thank you, and I'm deeply indebted for you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know it's late in the Carolinas. We are going to form a summit to meet with your chapter, your affiliate members, and organize the African American contractors in the Deep South of the Carolinas. So I look forward to doing that. But thank you again, Brother McCutcheon. I think we're going to hear from, is Omar Sharif here from Chicago? We have Omar Sharif, or we have John Proctor from out of the state of Texas. And I know I saw Michael LaFall while you were looking for those brothers. And if you want to tap in, anybody, please raise your hand, and Carlton will let you in if you want to chime into this conversation. Because we are going on record. This is a soft ground kickoff event, and we're going to basically take this before the public eyes. I talked to Black Men and Black Women United that Carl Overstreet and I participate every Tuesday. And we had shared this with them, and they're going to use their platform to educate. We want the Nathan Fletchers, and we want the Todd Glorias, the Monica Montgomerys. We want the Shirley Webbers and the Akila Webbers, and all of the lawmakers who are blindly endorsing this ideology with the union rally cry that this is the right thing to do. But I think once they really realize that this is nothing more than a masqueraded Jim Crow policy in its effects and in its outcomes and its destructive characteristics, it is dividing our citizens. You are turning hardworking union men and women who have a right to work and fight for and have a right to earn a living against hardworking men and women who chooses to be free and to work and get a career in construction. You're bastardizing the non-union affiliate worker. And anything evil like that is destructive. McCutcheon, would you like to chat? LaFall, would you like to tap in right now? Carlton, is LaFall on the line? Michael LaFall?
Yeah, I had to unmute there for a minute.
Okay, my brother. So, Brother Mike, come on in here, and because I know you've been chilling, you're doing compliance for the National Black Contractors up and down the state of California. And we've had this conversation before. Could you chime in a little bit about how we're going to move the needle forward? And not that we're here to say PLAs cannot be worked on because it's supposed to be a white paper. But what we're trying to come to terms with the politicians and the policymakers is what about a 50-50? You know, and we'll get into that discussion. But go ahead, Brother Mike.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And happy birthday to you. And thank you for everything that you've done. I'm glad to see you back here at the helm. But one of the things that we've begun to do is to change the language, because again, we realize that this is a legal issue. And even though a lot of the other agencies or some of the other political supporters don't understand or recognize the importance of the construction workers in this country, we've got to look at it that saying that when you have inclusionary programs and you want these particular issues to be effective, you have to look at the Black contractors as being part of those programs. But those programs are not working for us, and the statistics, they bear that out. You've done a number of polls and realized that, especially in California and all of the southern states, that at every level, we have less than 1% of all of the participation that goes on in a lot of these construction projects. And basically the language has to change, because you need to look at the minority issue as compared to the majority issue. The minorities are having I would have to say a bandwagon type of situation, because everybody believes they're a minority now, even the LGBTQ people. everybody's a minority, but at every level, we find out that they're using an outdated, I would say, spectrum to look at when it comes to these particular, I would say even outcomes of all of these particular jobs, because the Hispanic community is not a minority. They're in fact, the majority of the whole country at every level. But yet they use those as the numbers, and they use that as a succession to saying that they've reached their goals and they've done what's necessary, because they've used the majority of the people in the community in order for them to say that they've done their job. But our particular language has changed, and we've looked at this to say that at every level, when you talk about putting in these particular programs, the majority of the companies are being paid by the government to create these programs and to make them successful, but they are not. They're actually at some level failing simply because they keep using the old language as a minority as compared to the Black community, the Native American community, or the Pacific Islander communities, which basically are the only minorities left in this country. Everyone else, basically's numbers are pretty low. But at this level, we have to look at it and say that we need to take this at a legal level, because again, even though we have a shortfall when it comes to major prime contractors, we can still move forward and begin to take participation at every level, simply because we're being left out. And the numbers prove that over and over and over again. I'm getting a number of feeds from the Justice Department, and it is amazing to me how many people are going to jail now because they're manipulating contracts, they're embezzling money, and they're creating a situation to where it is not an equal playing field. And regardless of the unions and how they see it, I've spoke with several union people that say that they're behind on their training. They have, in my area, the Central Valley, there's over 700 people that can't get into the apprenticeship program simply because they're not doing the program correctly. So the inclusionary and all of these particular issues when it comes to equality and the rest, it's not happening. That right there is a legal leg to stand on. Because if you have a program and it's not working, then why is the program continuing, and why are people still being paid? We have another organization here in the Central Valley that basically says they're doing an apprenticeship program, but yet once that apprenticeship program is over, no one gets a job. No one gets that prevailing wage job. No one even gets a training position at any level, because they're not in compliance with the state's apprenticeship program. They just get the money because of training in the Department of Education, the Department of Labor. All of these departments have training money, and they say they're doing it, but they're not. So as far as the PLA is concerned, it's again a shell game, like you said, as far as Jim Crow and the rest of them. Basically, they're just beginning the rhetoric over again, and the knowledge part of this is being missed. We don't have the right knowledge, and we need to change the language.
All right, so we have very good, Brother Mike, and I appreciate your input. You're always insightful and very in depth about this issue. And I know we've flown to Washington, D.C. and dealt with the HUD housing Section 3 mandates and how they were being under implemented and what have you. So, I want to say this, that is there Mr. Proctor, is he on the phone? John Proctor from out of Dallas, Texas. We have a president, John Proctor, who's doing a great job down there in the great state of Texas, the Regional Black Contractors Association. So we have him. And if there's anybody else that wants to tap in, please tell them to come on board, because we need this, we need their input, and we want to be on record. And so we have some friends. Hey, Dustin, how you doing? We have friends from across the country who are facing the same, and we got to get past this charade that they're playing. Politicians they should be shamed, and they're going to be held accountable by the creator, at the end of the day, because they're doing some misdeeds, and it's all in the name of greed and one party rule. So that's pretty much where it is. Do we have McCutcheon? We have anybody from out of Dallas, Texas, Carlton? The brother by the name of John Proctor, or he wants to raise his name. And I also saw Bill from Casper, who is also on board. He's one of our PAC members. We have contractors that we've partnered with the Associated General Contractors to create a partnership, because most of the industry, the Building Industry Association, which is the BIA, home builders, are being forced into unionizing their contracts, which means mom and pop shops are going to force to be unionized. They can't take their static workforce. They have to hire from out of the hall and leave their specialized trained workers at home, and they can't work on these jobs. This is what we're talking about is being immorality, and that's really where it is. Brother Carlton, we have anybody else that's trying to tap in? Okay, we don't have Donald. John Proctor. Okay, all right. Oh, Henry, I'd like to hear from the council's office. I know they've been working very closely with us, and they really helped us when they were trying to remove the ban on project labor agreements to basically stall that move. And now it's coming back, and we want to make sure that our policymakers are well informed that this is more detrimental than it is beneficial. And, we're not attacking our elected officials. We're not bashing, nor do we support or endorse any bashing. We are basically trying to inform and educate the public on what's happening. Why is SANDAG 100% unionization? Why is the Airport Authority 100% unionization? Why is the Metropolitan Transit Board 100% unionization? Why is San Diego Unified School District 100% unionization? Why is the Water Authority 100% unionization? Why is the city of San Diego talking about 100% unionization? Why is the county of San Diego imposing a workers' right policy that is akin to unionization, that any land that a contractor works on has to sign a project labor agreement or use JAC, Joint Apprenticeship Committees, apprenticeship program, which is i.e. union apprenticeships, when state approved apprenticeship programs are the legal requirements that you are registered to the DAS per section 77.5, and you are an indentured apprentice, you are legally approved and authorized to work on public projects. So why are the contractors, why are the policymakers and the politicians who are taking our votes and our dollars, using their bully pulpit to do something that is basically against fairness and equality? And then yet and still they will talk out of their mouth one word and then they do an action on another. So I asked again, and my good friend Henry is a good brother, a good friend of mine, to go way before his working with the piece, but I know that he's probably taking notes and getting a temperature in terms of where this new movement is going. I've been basically, they say you do this, keep doing the same thing, getting the same results, then that's a form of insanity. So he has cautioned me on a number of things about our Black electives and how to work with them and empower them. And it's you, the people in this room, and the national folks that are going to do that. Brother Henry, you want to tap in on anything, or just wish me a happy birthday or sing it or whatever?
Happy birthday. As always, of course, happy birthday to you. And glad that you are, with us today. With all the events that have taken place over the past few years. So that's a blessing. So congratulations to you and happy birthday.
Thank you.
I think just for everyone here, as you guys are continuing to have your conversation, I put in the chat a link to the most current conversation that was taking place at the city of San Diego. The council appears to be in a position to bring this item or discussion on PLAs back to the forefront and are looking to put an item on the ballot in November. And so that conversation is currently being had. The two council offices that are championing the item is District 7 and also District 3. So I provided that for everyone here to look at so you can see the language that's being proposed and have an opportunity to review that and see where this group would want to go with that. I think just to answer your question, simply put, how did we get here? I think you kind of answered it in your opening remarks, just simple politics. And as you look at labor, this is something they've been working on for quite some time. I don't think in any conversation that we've had in regards to Council President Pro Tem, Monica Montgomery Stepp, her position has not changed in regards to PLA, so she will continue to push looking at how we can make sure we are trying our best to be inclusive and not excluding folks as these types of policies are discussed and brought forward. So I don't think you will see necessarily a shift there. The unfortunate reality is, I think if you look at the city of San Diego and the politics, I think the votes unfortunately are there to continue this conversation, to put this in place, to tell you how much or the work that labor has done. The current mayor was at the state legislature and made the moves to put the PLA requirement in regards to the pure water program, right? And that was something that he did as an emergency, was able to single that out and to push that through to where right now, any pure water project that we have is subject to a project labor agreement. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Hamid, I think you're looking at $1 billion program just on the pure water side alone. So the conversation is moving forward. I think they are in a position to get this through to the ballot, which will then go to a vote. And then we will see what that turnout is and go from there. We do not, the Council President Pro Tem no longer sits on the Rules Committee. So we do not have a direct, immediate impact to the item as it goes through the legislative process. I believe that once the item does get docketed at council, we'll have some time to look at what's being presented, to have hopefully some robust Q&A to see where we can go, what opportunities exist, so on and so forth. I can tell you, just for this group, when this item did come up previously, Council President Pro Tem did sit on Rules Committee, and as Brother Hamid had indicated, we worked very hard in sitting down with labor, and we also sat down with the AGC, industry folks, to figure out how we can carve certain things out and make sure that we were being inclusive, try to make sure we had some community benefit provisions and so forth. I think, unfortunately, as we went through our discussion, I can tell you that the city attorney that we were working for, based on the language that we provided, felt we were in a good place legally. But at that point in time, labor eventually made a decision that they could not support the item, and the item was pulled or requested to be pulled from the docket. And it was pulled from the docket accordingly. So this is there, as we've had the changeover on the council dais, where we had, what was it, 4 or 5 new council members come on board. Now the item's taken back up and is in full discussion, and again targeting the November general election. So that's where we currently are at the city, and more than happy to take any questions, geared at our office. The one thing that I will tell you is, in the link that I provided, there is a PowerPoint that's in there. As you talk about the elected officials that are in support of these PLAs, you can see there's a whole list of folks that are supportive of the efforts that are taking place. So I think there's actually a slide in the slide deck that talks about that, that actual support from elected officials. So that's all I have, Brother Hamid, at this point. Again, more than happy to take any questions that are specific.
All right, I'm going to have Alexis is going to chime in for a second, but before you do that, I want to first thank Councilwoman Montgomery Stepp. She has had to walk a delicate line. There's no question about whether or not we're saying that PLAs cannot be the tool of equality in light of the fact that we don't have a proposition because of Proposition 209. And I think that what she was able to do was to have a PLA, which was unprecedented, to have inclusivity of a percentage of non-JAC apprenticeship programs to be included. What we're trying to get labor to see is that apprenticeships are no threat to their labor stables. Apprenticeship programs do not warehouse journeymen who have completed the program. These journeymen who have completed the program are free agents. They graduate from Mesa College. They graduate from State College, Grossmont College. They graduate from San Diego State. They have the credentials that are called skilled and trained, which is a requirement to work on publicly funded projects, or unless you're an indentured apprentice. Right now, they're going to a skilled and trained mandate that 60% of your workers must show a graduating certificate from the state of California Division of Apprenticeship Standards that they are skilled and trained, or they have to be registered apprentices. So what we want to get into the summit, and we're bringing Black Men and Black Women United, we're bringing the Urban League and LIST and several other community organizations. We're talking with Reverend Harris, who is heading up an initiative called the Equity Construction Council, that we formed an advisory group made up of the Building Industry Association, made up of the Associated General Contractors, made up of the Western Electrical Contractors, and programs that are state approved to educate the public on this atrocity that's basically taking place. I want to yield to Mrs. Alexis Hamid to chime in, who's been a strong advocate in terms of this initiative and sharing some, she wants to share some comments. And also we have others in the room and others that are in the Zoom. But Henry, I want to thank you and applaud you and tell the councilwoman we really appreciate her courage, because we know that some of our friends are going to vote for project labor agreements, but we just are telling them don't do it blindly. We want them to be courageous enough to say, well, what about, as Mayor Vasquez from Lemon Grove stated at the SANDAG meeting, what about the IUAC apprenticeships? after she became informed and educated, there's a difference between IUAC and JCAC. Joint apprenticeship committees, which means training, which means union and versus non-union sponsored. They are all state and federal indentured and registered apprentice. We can indenture you, but you have to be certified through the state of California or the Department of Labor. And so when the public becomes educated that it's not a union apprenticeship or a BCA apprenticeship, it is a state apprenticeship, and it's sponsored, that we are basically certifying and having a contract that you're going to go to school and you're going to work 40 hours a week, and you're going to go 4 years until you become a master skilled worker. And we're going to verify that you are skilled and trained because you did it under a standards of training practices, which is called the apprenticeship standards. So that if you, and then the OSHA training and everything else that goes with it. Mrs. Alexis.
Yes, thank you so much. First, I want to wish you a happy birthday. You know, it is a big day. This year is a big year for the Black Contractors Association. This year does mark 40 years that the BCA has been a state and federally approved apprenticeship. Just as my grandfather stated earlier, we are a state and federally approved apprenticeship. Our apprentices are required to work 5,000 hours of on-the-job training. That training comes from public dollars, from public projects. The county, San Diego, they ask the government for money to fund these projects. These are our tax dollars that are coming back to the city. So when our apprentices work on those projects, these are tax dollars that they have put in from working other jobs. They have the legal right to work on these jobs. Since 2012, PLAs have been banned in San Diego. However, there are currently and have been since 2012 jobs that have PLAs. PLAs are project labor agreements. All that says is who can work on the job. Why is a state approved apprentice not allowed to work on a state approved job? That is the bottom line that we're facing here. A lot of the politicians that endorse these PLAs, that promote these union so-called, and again, it's not union bashing, but I work directly with these apprentices. I know exactly what they're going through when they're trying to get a job. Most of them are coming from nothing, starting from nowhere. Some of them don't have the money to pay union dues. They don't have the money to pay the union startup. Their alternative is to come to a free program. We offer a free program. We don't dismiss people because they don't have a driver's license. That happens.
Oh.
We don't dismiss people because they can't pass a drug test. That happens in the union. They just came down and they held a workshop at San Diego City College. I sent somebody down there to go out for that opportunity. The treatment that they received was horrible. Everybody who had any part to do with recruiting and outreach, to have people from this community go to that training, they should be ashamed of themselves. And that's exactly what we're saying to these politicians in Georgia. They're not here when these guys are going to the training. And they're not here on record from a young woman who wanted to get into the construction industry. Her treatment of just trying to get into the industry, trying to work with these contractors. She felt discriminated against before she even got on the job. And that is what we're talking about when we're saying this racist policy. Yes, PLAs can be inclusionary. Yes, they can help and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. But do they? No. Because just because you wrote it on paper, does it trickle all the way down to that contractor, that sub that's on the job, that's hiring these apprentices, that's requiring them to come on the job? Does it trickle down to those subs? No, it doesn't. Right now, we're fighting with subs at the Live Well Center to be inclusionary, to hire not just ones and twosies, not to exclude people because they don't have a driver's license. We're advocating for these people who just want to work when everybody knows the facts. There is a labor shortage. There is a shortage of workers. The baby boomers are retiring. They're out of here. These foremen, they're out. So we do need new, young, able-bodied. And we do have to make it a great workplace, just like any other workplace. We do have to make it welcoming. It does have to be inclusionary. We cannot try to make it inclusionary. We have tried for 40 years. My grandfather has been fighting this same fight for 40 years. You can go back, it's on record. The message still has not changed. It's discrimination. And when we change the language, and you have to pay attention to the language, because that's how they've been able to still implement these PLAs through loopholes. And that's all that it is a loophole. And pay attention to the language. And we're fighting for the underrepresented. So who's the underrepresented? What's not represented on that job? When you go onto those sites, when you look on any job site, who don't you see? Who don't you see? That's who we're fighting for. So please pay attention to their language. Pay attention to what they say. And just because they say it doesn't mean it's actually implemented. We're looking for the implementation. That is key. That is key. So I just wanted to sum up, and I just wanted to kind of put it into perspective, because again, my grandfather, he's been in this for years. He knows the ins and outs. He knows the laws. He knows it like the back of his hand. And just as I had to learn it, and just have other people, they have to learn it, they're not going to understand it the way that he understands it. But the bottom line is that we are a state and federally approved apprenticeship. Our apprentices are required to work 5,000 hours of on-the-job training. We have apprentices in our program right now. If we're blocked off every public funded job, we don't have an apprenticeship program. We cannot train these guys. Now the opportunity, the access, and let's talk about equity, because that's what everybody wants to talk about, right here in this very community, right here in our own very backyard, the access, the opportunity to have a career, to go into it for free. We don't care if you don't have a high school diploma. We help with that. GED, we help with that. We don't care if you don't have a car. We don't care if you don't have a driver's license. It's a completely program. We don't charge. You get registered into the San Diego City College, where you get college credit for taking the courses. We provide this access so that individuals are able to be self-sustainable, so that they can have careers, so that they can provide for their families, so that they can buy a house, so that they can build their own house, so that they can build themselves up. You take that away from this community, then what do they have? What option do they have? What option will they have? Our program has produced foremans. Our program has produced general contractors, journeymen. Our program became about by a union master carpenter because he saw a lack of access to learn the very thing that he learned, the very thing that he's able to now pass down to generations of his sons, his grandchildren. So please understand, please see what is happening. Please hold these politicians accountable. They say a lot. They say a lot, but it takes action. And anybody who is in any political realm or in any political position, and they say something as it's above me, or it's a process, or it can't happen today, it's a lie. It's a lie, because I've seen it and I've been in the rooms where people have stood up and said, no, I will not take that when a contractor says we're manned up. I've seen them hold these people that's supposed to trickle down and follow these policies that they are putting into place. I've seen them hold all those very people accountable. So it is very much doable. And if they're not doing it, it's because they don't want to. It's because they don't want to. It's simply because they don't want to. And we cannot have people like that in office. And we cannot let people like that get by and just do the bare minimum and put on dog and pony shows. Because we are the community. We're here every day. We actually see what's going on. We see the direct needs of the community. Thank you.
Yes. My God. Okay. Is there anybody on the anybody on the Zoom that wants to speak? Brother Henry, again, thank you for chiming in from the council's office and reaffirming what we might have not understood, where Council Member Montgomery Stepp stands, and that's a beautiful thing. But do we have anyone from the Zoom audience that would like to chime in? I think Alexis has pretty much summed it up. I can, if I was to go, with Janice here at the control of the apprenticeship program and running, making sure that these people are indentured and registered, both DOL and the state of Department of Labor, that we have passed audits when they come in and they look in our books, and wanted to make sure that the DAS 140 forms are signed and the right credentials, that we're doing the hours and we're doing the accreditation. She's the one that have actually authored and set up an accredited college accredited program, being a professor herself and a person of academia. So I want to thank her. Do you want to say anything, Sister Janice? I think federal, yes, and yeah, I mentioned the federal program. So, but it's that's why my good friend over here, Dustin, who came out of the campaign office of the County of San Diego, who really understands how these policies and these procedures are being made. And basically what we want the politicians to understand, they don't have to be afraid that people are not going to fund their campaigns and take money from the dope man to make it easy for themselves. ill-begotten gains. When you take money from people that are forcing people to pay union dues or don't work, or you take money from the taxpayers to run your campaigns, there's something diabolically wrong with that. And we're not going to belabor this because this is the beginning of a series of conversations and discussions that's going to be held throughout the land, not just here in San Diego, where we've talked to our brother down there in the Carolinas, and we've got the chapter Omar Sharif out of Chicago, and Proctor from the Texas and other states. We all have these same fights, but let's clear this mess up. You know, we said after George Floyd, enough is enough. You know, we talked about the ill treatment to the former slaves and descendants of slavery, and we want to do better. Well, that was a good commitment. That was a good, that was lip service. But doing better is changing. And I seen the head of the building department from the county of San Diego said that we're not going to do business as usual. That's why we made the numbers, or we're making the numbers as far as small business is concerned. And he has to fight and push back, because not only when a contractor signs a collective bargain agreement, that is another form of a PLA. He's not able to hire contractors or subcontractors who are not unionized. So those agreements, when these contractors become signature to the carpenters or signature to the laborers, they cannot hire a non-signature, a contractor. That within itself is a form of discrimination. And the other part of it is, and then they have a double whammy, which is a project stabilization agreement or a project labor agreement on top of it, is an insult to injury. Wake up, dear people. We're not dummies. We're human beings. Our thoughts travel 24 billion miles per second. We live on an earth that weighs 6 sextillion tons, travel by a unit of 23,000 miles per second. Our creator created a great universe and created a great world for us to have gold and diamonds and jewelry and everything under our feet. And why are we struggling and fighting over who gets to do what and who cannot be doing what? This is pure evil. And let's call it for what it is. We want to unravel this dress. We want to show that the PLA is nothing more than a Jim Crow policy. Jim Crow says segregation. Jim Crow says marginalization. Jim Crow segregates and discriminates against class. They have been getting away with this far too long, and they have been glorifying the notion of trade unions as the end all be all for America. No, me and my family don't want to have to join a union. That's our prerogative. Why are you forcing us into unionization? If I want to work on a public project, why are you forcing me to unionize? Oh, we're going to let, like SANDAG says, oh, we're going to allow the UAC apprentices to participate. Some of them. But we're not going to allow the program sponsors the entitlement of the training contributions that the state affords, 62 cents per man hour of journeyman and apprentice to run your program. Like the Hebrew slaves, we're going to tell you to build bricks without straw. Let's call it what it is. Let's stop trying to go along and get along. We don't have to be mean-spirited about it. We just have to be truthful. We got to have these conversations. Why? Because it affects our babies that are being gunned down in schools, going to school. It affects us when you're gunning down future apprentices who do not have an opportunity because you're hobnobbing with trade unions. You're hobnobbing with labor brokers. There's nothing wrong with what they do. They can do their thing, but let the rest of the world be free to be what God created us to be, is free. Freedom, justice, and equality. So I'm here to say, I want to thank you who are here in this room and those of you who are in the Zoom world. Darnell Johnson, how are you, sir? We have Darnell Johnson, who is the president of the vice president of the National Association of Minority Contractors. He's also the vice president of the, what is it? Elite Disabled Veterans. And we have been collaborating with his organization for a number of years. And they're fighting on the national front. But we want to have this very important conversation because what Gaylord is doing down there in Chula Vista and the Airport Authority and the rest of them that we named earlier, Darnell, before you arrived, is criminal. And we want to some way parlay this issue into a legal suit. We have to do it, fight it legally. So I ask for contributions for some of those folks that have contributed. I appreciate it. I want you to continue to contribute funds that we can use to buy material, marketing material. We can help staff the initiative. We can buy campaign and PSA ads. We can have billboard communities to talk about PLA equals Jim Crow. We want to challenge the politicians. We want the politicians. Looks like Jamila is here from Nathan Fletcher's office. Yes, yeah, she was. Thank you, Jamila. I acknowledged you yesterday on the, and I know you're here listening, but I would like for you to chime in a little bit if you would like to. Thanks for pointing that out, brother. Jamila Johnson, and she's a new liaison, and she wants to just talk about your role with the Nathan Fletcher's office and how you can help bring this message back that we can have a sit down with the Honorable Nathan Fletcher and let him hear our story. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Brother Hamid, and especially for hosting this event and also bringing attention to this very, very important contracting issue. As I mentioned in the chat, I do need to hop off to attend another meeting, but I felt like this conversation was very insightful. And for me in my position as the community representative for Supervisor Fletcher, it's my job to relay this information to him. And we all sit down with our community team, our policy team, and our communications team and see where we can go from there. And so with having this conversation, this is helpful to opening that door, making sure that we prioritize that time to connect with him, because as you all know, we have a really strong relationship with labor, and so just navigating that conversation and bringing this to his attention is going to be very important.
Well, thank you so much, and I think that when at the end of the day, and I'm not going to belabor you from your departure, at the end of the day, I think that labor and the politicians are going to find out that we all want the same thing. We all want to eat, feed our families, and not be deprived by any policy or procedure. And there's enough for everyone. We're talking about $2 billion on the Airport Authority. We're talking about $2 billion over here, $3 billion over here. We're talking about over $100 billion, $160 billion in projects that are coming down the pipe and that are in place. So what's wrong with giving opportunities to people that need opportunity? Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. And you are a breath of fresh air and a welcoming spirit to our community. And I thank you so much for being here. God bless.
Thank you.
Mr. Wendell Stimley is the national president of the National Association of Minority Contractors. Wendell, could I have you come in for a second and chime in? We had a few chapter presidents from across the country that have dialed in. Wendell's been fighting this fight, and I want to have him say a few words. Give him a mic over here. Wendell, you can sit right next to me as long as you stay away from me. I'm COVID phobia. So we have Brother Wendell Stimley, who is actually one of the participating builders of this facility with a foundation and slab work that's been done here. And he's also started out 20 years ago as a small mom and pop one guy. And now he's a major builder across the country. He's actually a partner on the Live Well Center, and he's participated And he has basically learned how the cows eat the cabbage. And Brother Wendell, could you share some thoughts today?
Good afternoon. I've seen San Diego go in a very bad direction. Got to San Diego 20 some odd years ago. You could look on the television and see Lisa Lake, and you could listen to the radio and hear Tayati, and San Diego has just voided itself of anything African American. Was with Brown and Root yesterday in Dubai, and I just noticed that where you have an embracing of African American lineage worldwide, you have a divesting of African American locally here in San Diego. You can't have this conversation without talking about racism and institutional and industry racism, from big business, non-union, to big business, as you guys call it, unionization. I call it cliques of money. And the cliques of money don't really care about how they get to the money, as long as they're getting the money. If you look at every master union agreement has the non-union AGC as the first signature on the first page of every master signatory agreement. So they're all cutting the deals about the money. This project, I get the money, that project, you get the money. At the end of the day, the conversation always comes back to the same thing, and it's about the money. So when we look at, it takes us $326,000 to graduate an apprentice from the first period to his or her graduation. That's how much money you have to invest in a young man or woman to get them through that 4 or 5 years. So you got 10 people, you need $3.2 million. So you can get economically removed from the process just by not having opportunity, because you got to have projects first, and you got to have the business to receive that project. Then you have to have a commitment from that business to invest in their local community and hire local workers and local apprentices, and have the capital to be able to graduate them. So if you cut us off from the business opportunity, you cut us off from the work opportunity, and you don't have the capital, then you'll have a community that is morally and financially bankrupt. So for an international company to be told in a foreign country, if you want to keep doing business here, you better get some people that look like us, then they have more initiative towards the African-American owned company than an African-American sitting in the United States in San Diego, California. Now that's kind of crazy.
Test it. Give him the mic. Okay. Mic died.
Oh, I'm not gonna need it long. So, like Hamid said, after I've been able to do this locally and then nationally and now internationally, I just find that the opportunity is going to be where the racism is not the barrier that prevents you from being all you can be or whoever you can be. Because I don't over glorify myself. I don't think that I'm any smarter than the next guy. It's just who has the opportunity and the timing. But if you take everything away from anybody, I don't care how talented they are. If you take all the money, all the projects, all the jobs, then eventually the person cannot succeed. And then there's very little other opportunity left, but an illegal one or incarceration. But then we blame the individual that got incarcerated more so than the system that led to his or her incarceration in the first place. And I'll leave you with this. Man told me something that blew my mind. It's like, I love America. He thinks America is a great country. He said, but if you work here, I want you to understand something. We would never allow a child to own a gun. And that's something that we gotta really think about, those kind of statements when internationally people look at us and say, why would you allow an 18-year-old child to own an assault weapon with a banana clip? But then you'll fight this brother on having the right to employ a apprentice or not. I mean, come on, people. I mean, what are we really talking about? You will literally have resistance from folks who ought to have an apprentice, who ought to have a right to work, but then you can't be 18 and you can't do this. Oh, but you can go down to the gun store and get you a AK-47 assault rifle with a banana clip, and the world is watching. The world sees this and wonder, what are we thinking as a people? So anyway, for me to tell you, I do projects, PLAs, non-PLAs. I see the greed on all sides of it. I don't get emotionally entangled. But one thing I always say, the BCA has a right, the Inner City Unilateral Apprenticeship Committee has a right to employ the residents of this district and have the agencies understand that they have a right to participate.
It's wonderful. Brother Wendell, you're always spot on. I want to thank Brother Dressel Johnson, who just came in from Los Angeles. He is the Vice President of National Black Contractors California, and also the President of Young Black Contractors based out of Los Angeles and on the national board. I'm going to have him say a few words, but before I do, I want to have James Norris, who just completed a private project as a project manager, general contractor, who's done some great things and doing great things. So we have the talent. You know, we have contractors that have participated in hundreds of millions of dollars worth of construction. So why are they marginalizing so-called BIPOC with a 10% carve out for BIPOC contractors and 90% to a minority group that have bought their seat at the table? But Brother James, would you share some comments about your perspective?
How you doing? Just give you a little background about myself. I've actually been in the construction business about 40 years. I have a degree in construction technology. I've been in San Diego here for 20 years. I'm originally from Detroit. I've worked and lived in New York and Miami, Atlanta, Ohio, Mississippi, and worked in those places. And coming here to San Diego, I was really shocked because when I got here, Prop 209 had just devastated the city as far as I can see. And it's been, you know, from that point, it's been ground zero. I've worked on projects here, a lot of public projects, pretty much schools, managed construction for the owners at Southwestern College, over $30 million in projects. I managed that. Managed the construction of Lincoln High School for the school district. 150, the Skills Center, that was one of my projects. Excuse me. I managed construction for UCSD for about 8 years with my company. Right now, I'm finishing up a Marriott Hotel downtown, in charge of construction there. So after that project is done, I'm kind of trying to spread my wings a little bit more because Public Works, they have a lot of traps, a lot of ways to basically exclude people. You know, they're real good about it. Qualifying people. That's how they get rid of and that's how they select who they want to use for different projects. So, you know, Hamid, I appreciate what he's doing. You know, he's been, you know, at it for a while, and I really appreciate that. And you know, I've kind of been on the safe end because I haven't had a large organization. I generally hired, you know, professionals, you know, engineers that I need for whatever particular project. But you know, I've been at this for a while, and I'm more or less on the consulting end. It can help companies grow. It can help companies manage projects from that perspective, or do developments for myself. But I'm here, and you know, I know how things work all around the country. I've seen Atlanta grow from nothing to what it is right now. I used to work for the largest black contractor in the country in Atlanta, and so I know most of those contractors there, and it's a small contracting community, black community in this country. But I'm glad to see Wendell and Drexel, and you know, I'm back at it. Put feet on the ground, whatever you need me to do to you know, for this cause.
Yes, sir. Well, your presence is very, very notably needed. Is there any comments in the comment section you need to read, Brother Carlton? And also, I'd like to have Dressel Johnson. We talked to Mike LaFall just a minute ago. I don't have him chime back in. But we're going to have Brother Dressel, Muhammad Ali of the construction industry.
I don't know if I'm Muhammad Ali of the construction industry, but I like to tell it like it is and let the chips fall where they're supposed to fall. In this industry, from what I've gathered over the last 30 years that I've been out here, it's always a situation where it's, you're not good enough, or you're the wrong color, or your requirements don't match up with what we're asking for. And a lot of it comes right down to politics. And some of the people that's been in the organization up in LA, they would tell you, for the most part, I'm not an elected official, but I have to politic all the time. And what we run into the Me Too, the You Too, the different types of Negroes, the different types of situations and scenarios in terms of the boule Negro, the poor Negro, the ugly Negro, the good Negro, the handsome Negro. And that's what they do business as. And when I say good, I'm talking about good enough to do, or good enough, not good enough to do. So when you look at the final analysis, even with the PLAs and the project labor agreements, project stabilizer agreements, the community benefits agreement, all these various agreements are detained and controlled by politics. Case in point, there's a company right now, which I've had a little success with, but I don't want to mention them. I want to talk about the board. I want to talk about the board of Compton Unified School District. Compton Unified School District has a predominantly black board, and the contractor is saying, let's utilize these guys, the young black contractors. We like them. We like what they bring to the table. They bring some color to the table. No, they don't bring color to the table. They bring some colored people to the table. People of color and colored people are two different damn things, and people need to know that. But we don't do that. We allow that to be mentioned and said and carried on into the next phase of doing business, and it doesn't truly represent us. And with respect to a lot of different organizations, I have nothing against the various organizations with the names that they have. But when I met Hamid about 35 years ago and found out what he wanted to name, what he had named this organization down here, I figured he was a guy that I need to stay elbow to elbow with. The bottom line, you guys, in my opinion, over the last 30 years, if the politics were right, black people would be more at the table than not. And I say that with clarifying Compton College. There are enough Negroes on Compton College to make a Tarzan movie. And none of them wanted to vote to have any black inclusion. And they're blacker than me. None of them. So when we got involved, we figured we'd leave this thing alone, because there are always there's always an investigation going on. Someone in Compton that's Black is always indicted. And I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. So before I point the finger at any other race about any other issues, the politics and the Blacks need to be true to Black first. I don't want to shut another white man's job down until I go shut some of these Negro GCs down that are not working Black folk. And that's a fact. So in the final analysis of why I'm here today, I'm here because today is my brother's birthday and I support him in all that he does. And he's a fighter, he's a lion, he's the man. He's the man. So I'm here to support.
Okay, Janice is going to read some comments, but let's make sure you want to.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to chime in and echo on what Drexel said in regards to shutting Black jobs down, because I've been a personal friend of Hamid for years. And he's mentored me, he scolded me, and he admonished me. And he shut my job down. I got a job for Jacob Center. He jumped out the car with his hard hat on. I said, bro, what are you doing? There's no Black folks on this job. He literally shut my job down. So he doesn't discriminate even with people that he likes. He's real serious about advocating for young African-Americans and the BIPOC, what do you say? Black indigenous people of color. And he's real serious about this program that he started. He's real serious and real passionate about this, brother. I'm just basically here today, brother, to let you know that I love you, I support you. In fact, I got $67 in commemoration of your 67th born day. And we just pray that our Creator will continue to guide you and bless you. And we do want to sing a quick happy birthday. Can we get the 2 bars of happy birthday to you? All right, let's get a happy birthday to me. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Oh, wait, the Queen said no. His wife said no. Here you go.
I'm gonna buy some posters. Read these people out in the comment. You want to read the comments on the chat box while those folks are still there, Janice?
Okay. From Rahima Dean, can you speak to how local African-American contractors can do better at partnering and collaborating with other African-American contractors that already have a footing in the industry? Oh, you didn't hear the question?
No, how can we partner with local contractors?
How African-American contractors can do better at partnering and collaborating with other African-American contractors that's already.
When you become a member of the National Black Contractors Association, you buy into a policy and a procedure of self-help and collaboration. And so that's where you start, because you have people here like Mr. Wendell Stimley, who has hired a lot of African-American workers and contractors, unionized them and worked them on other jobs as well. And James Norris, Brother Drexel and others, and we have the Youngs up there who are basically have their company Drifex and A&A Construction Services. My brother Julius, who laid all the carpet and vinyl flooring down here on the building some 25 plus years ago. They're still holding up. Brother Donald, no, I'm trying to look at this brother right here. I'm trying, my name is, yeah, you, what's your name, man? Desmond. All right, Desmond Collins. I had a COVID fog moment. Who's wrote a book called Black Carpenter's Guide. So to answer the question, I think the strength of the wolf is in the pack.
And I would share with this on that. I have a subcontractor working for me.
You have another question, Janice?
A subcontractor working for me right now, his name's called Vic Ross. And Vic Ross basically told the project team, well, I ain't filling out this, I ain't filling out that, I'm not filling out this, that, and the other. So what you have to do, you find one person that doesn't mind doing the paperwork, and then you know you have someone capable of doing the tasks, and you work together versus letting the opportunity go to someone else outside of your community. So everything Vic won't do, I'll do, and everything I can't do, Vic will do. So we are able to take a particular project from point A to point B. We're gonna get this scope of work done. I just had to get some folks involved because he doesn't wanna do any type of masonry work around the elevator shaft, but you work through the issues to make sure that you keep the work in your community and figure out how guys can work together, where one guy might have a flavor for one thing and not really want to do another. But you gotta protect your home turf. I would tell anywhere in the country, if you're in Texas, Georgia, wherever, those projects that come to your community, you have to work together and figure out how to get those projects done.
Well, I want to say too, thank you. Hey, let's sing happy birthday to my better half. That's my twin brother, Ron. It can't be a birthday because even though he's 45 minutes older than I am, but you know, he's coming in 45 minutes later than I am. But I appreciate him being here because most people don't realize that there's two sides of me. And we're just as diverse in our physical makeup as we are in our personal characters. And this has been my backbone, my spine, that we went through the welding school together. We learned how to be carpenters together. We raised pigeons together, you know, and we've done a great thing. But happy birthday, my twin brother. Yes, sir. Come on in and have a seat. Set a spell. Oh, bring him on in. But listen, Ms. Johnson, I want to thank you, Deborah, for coming down and being an integral part of this whole initiative. You and Drexel are the salt of the earth. You've done so much. And you know, but they say behind every great man is a woman kicking his butt to be greater. And so I appreciate that because, you know, I know what my wife does with me, and you've made a good man out of this man. And the work that we're doing is only historically being written. Brother Drexel, you want to chime some more in? And we're going to, Dustin, you want to say something about anything about anything?
I'm just happy to be here. Happy birthday.
All right. I got another donation here.
I just wanted to mention to the people here today that the state of California has reached out to us after I guess, knocking on the door for so long. Senator Steve Bradford out in LA area, he's finally got the Department of Treasury and Transportation to the table to talk about the various issues as to why we're not on the Caltrans jobs, why we're not on the housing jobs, why we're not up and down the freeways like everybody else and all the other colors. And I shared with him a lot of it was due to, you know, the union aspect. And long story short, on the 22nd of this month, they've invited us to come out and meet with them in Sacramento to talk about what do we want to do moving forward to be at the table, because we're not there. And as my old high school principal would always say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And that's what's kind of happening right now, because they're wearing Black people's asses out. I mean, we're just nowhere percentage-wise. We don't even exist. And this is why other people do us and treat us like they do us, because we take whatever's out there without fighting. We don't put up a fight, and like we should, like most of us won't do, which makes it even harder on what we do, because when the opposition look over at the fact that you guys won't fight, well, they won't fight. We'll just go and find us a Negro that won't fight and deal with him. You look at a lot of Black people that's been busted and kicked out of the various DBE programs now. Some of these people have been around for 35 and 40 years, stole a lot of work from a lot of people that deserved it and didn't get it. And it's really tragic as to how we as a race of people come from the primary labor force of doing labor, and now we're almost non-existent. And when we fight about it, we even amongst ourselves, we have different approaches to go forward and move forward. But it's like some of the projects I see down here in San Diego, some of the huge projects, some of the airport stuff. I see people in LA that look just like I look that ain't even did the right thing in LA. How the hell they get down here? Boy, Uncle Tommen is a business. It's a lucrative business. So when you find these cats that realize how they can Uncle Tom and get to the white man big contractor and do well, they're going to keep on doing that. So it's very important for us to support Hamid, support Wendell, y'all support me as we move forward, because the fight is a real fight. It's a real fight. And a lot of times we don't get properly compensated for our fighting, but I do believe in fighting and not just laying down.
All right, thank you, Brother Dressel. Well, listen, those of us in the room are here because we believe in the same thing: equity, inclusion, and parity. And there are 9 other folks out there from various offices, political offices, and organizations and persuasions that are going to get this message. We want to contaminate our country and our society like the pandemic with what is equitable and fair. There's a young lady in the Zoom that I'd like to have her chime in. She's the co-chairman of Black Men and Black Women United. This is Francine Maxwell. Could you bring her up, Carlton? She's always got something insightful to say. She's headed up the NAACP and done a great job with them. And so not to belabor this because it is a birthday celebration, but as we commemorate this birthday, I want to welcome Brother Hill, and I've known his family. Francine, are you there? Is that Rashima? Rashima Dean. Is Francine there still? And Rashima, you want to say anything? We read your comment.
Yes.
What's that?
Yes, I would like to ask a couple of questions.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So kind of circling back to, the responses that the brothers gave about how contractors can partner and collaborate. I wanted to know, are there any plannings of mentor prodigy programs from our more seasoned and experienced contractors so that we can really put a footprint out there and pass the baton on to other contractors? Because if we don't teach each other, who do we, expect to teach us how to play this game out here in this industry? And so I think that is very important. And I would like to hear each one of you speak to that actually, about opening your doors up for mentor prodigy and helping, pass the baton so that we can build some leverage in this industry.
Well, I think that's a very good question. And some of the folks that were here, Wendell probably spoke a little bit about it. James Norris is definitely a source here. So I think that we want to get, what we want to do is, because we can't do it all this meeting, but we want to get everybody back at the table. We used to have a Tuesday morning huddle, and we're going to go back to those Tuesday morning huddles where we huddle up and do exactly what you're talking about, Sister Rashima Dean, because I think it's important. But we don't want to lose focus on what we're here today to talk about the Jim Crow policy, PLA policy laws that are being voted in and put into office and rammed down the public's throat as something that is good and inclusive. And what the public has been sold is a bill of goods because it has been well defined in this little short meeting, this little short discussion, that this is something that is very, very wrong. Just like somebody decided that when America had forced slavery or indentured slaves, that was morally wrong to force a people to work for free. And if they don't, they get beaten or they get brutalized and things of that nature. So somebody today